Yes, yes, I can see.
It's a this is the Navy, Army, and Air Force sign.
Okay,
This with an anchor and cross swords and an
right,
eagle.
right.
And here I've got this little squiggle that you see
Ah.
is COSC written from top to bottom. Chiefs
Oh,
of Staff Committee.
okay, okay. Yes,
There are
yes.
many ties. People keep changing them in due course, but this is the old one. So, Nivedita, last time we were talking about the Maldives operation.
Right.
I told you what had happened in the Maldives, and I told you that I reached Army headquarters after a call from Mr. Ronan Sen, who was on the Prime Minister's office, a diplomat, and he said that we had discussed. I said, yes, we can help. It's some problem in Maldives. Then he decided to bring the Prime Minister to military operations room in Army headquarters at 11:30. And I told you that as I came out of the lift, I met General Rodriguez, who was my vice chief, rushing toward the cabinet secretary. I said, no, you forget him, you come with me. I wanted to explain to him what's going to happen. So I straight away told General Rodriguez, whom we call Roddy, that you inform the parachute brigade. From parachute brigade, we have 2 battalions in Agra. There are about 7 battalions of the parachutes, but they're posted all over the place in various duties, both on the northern border and elsewhere. But in Agra itself, you have 2 battalions who are ready on 3 days' notice to go into any type of operations. You're the ones who can jump out of aeroplanes and come down on a parachute. They wear a maroon beret on top, and they're very proud of themselves because they jump out of the sky. So I said, please warn them. I want them on 2 hours' notice to move. We'll give you details later. So meanwhile, I found I wanted the air chief and the navy chief also to come and discuss this issue with me because this is going to be a tri-service operation since the Maldives is across the ocean. We're about 200 nautical miles from Trivandrum, which is the southeastern coast in Kerala, as you know. So I found that the air chief, who was S.K. Mehra, Air Chief Marshal S.K. Mehra, was away on tour. Then Admiral Nadkarni, who was the naval chief, was also on tour. So then I requested the vice chief of air staff, who's a person called Air Marshal at that time, Nirmal Suri, who later became the air chief, and to come and join me in my office. And he very readily came. And then the naval vice chief, or not the vice chief, but rather, yes, the naval vice chief was a chap called Gulu Hiranandani, vice admiral. He was a very good friend of mine. And I asked him to come and join me in my office. Now, I must tell you about these 2 gentlemen. Nirmal Suri, the vice chief of air staff at that time, who later became the air chief, is a rim collier, like me. So every time we go to the RIMC every year, we meet and we are very good friends. Secondly, as far as Hiranandani, Gulu, Hiranandani is concerned, he had been with me since I was a major general in the army headquarters, in the military operations directorate. We had a weekly meeting of the uh, the JPC, the Joint Personnel Committee, which is at the major general level to decide issues between Army, Navy, and Air Force and which affect the nation's defense. And after we put out papers in the JPC, these go up to the 3 chiefs who can then further mull over the suggestions that we made, and they can chop and change as they please. So whenever in the JPC representing the military operations, Guru Hiranandani was the representative from the Navy, and as luck would have it, S.K. Mehra, who is now the Air Chief, was also a member from Air Force. So we knew each other from the time when I was a Major General and S.K. Mehra was a Air Vice Marshal, equivalent rank, and Guru Hiranandani was a Rear Admiral, equivalent rank. And now we were in these positions. And so three of us got together. We were very good friends. In fact, if I might share with you, I thought it was a bit of very good luck that the actual air chief and the actual naval chief were out of the country. So that I really became the boss because I was the senior boss. Why I want to say this is that when you want to make plans and you want to control something, there has to be a single mind. Other minds can come in and assist that person to decide on what is to be done. But when the decision has to be made, it should be by a single man, a single commander who hears everybody and then does what he thinks is right. He may follow their advice, and for that matter, having heard objections to any part of a plan, he may not follow their advice. That's the way operations are conducted. We need a single command. Now, since the two were very good friends and also a little junior to me, we were on a good net. And I said, now we have to plan an operation. Prime Minister is coming at 11:30. We hardly have a couple of hours. And now let's get down to this and see what we have to do. Then I asked the military operations to produce maps of the Maldives Islands. And we were very surprised to learn that we had no maps of the Maldives Islands. So we all scratched our heads and saying there are no maps here. So Vice Admiral Hiranandan, he said, I'll go back to the Navy operations room and get naval charts. Now, you must understand what a naval chart is. A naval chart shows you various routes along which ships can go, depending on the depth of the ocean, so that they're not grounded, you see. Any ships that, for instance, that have to go westwards will have to cross the Maldives Islands. In fact, the channel is a 20-degree channel, as they call it, between the southernmost islands of the Lakshadweep, which is on the western coast of Kerala, and the northernmost islands of the Maldives. There are about 100 islands in the Maldives. So you see, ocean is a vast expanse of water, but there are all these little blobs of islands all over the place. And so in the naval chart, you show the depth of the ocean at every point and decide which is the channel through which your ships can go. The 20-degree channel between Lakshadweep and Maldives was 20 degrees, geographical degrees, of ocean where ships could travel. So they have these charts. And he brought the charts, and the land is only shown as blobs. There are no physical features, roads, railways, buildings, harbors, physical features depicted on this blob of land that is shown there. But what the naval chart concentrates on is the channels through which the ships can pass. Nonetheless, we had nothing else. So we looked at this, and we were then rather surprised to learn that the airport of the Maldives, this is a tourist destination for all over the world, is a separate island from the main island of Male. Male is the capital. So that's the largest island, and it's got a town on it called Male. That's the capital of Maldives. And the distance of another island, about 2 nautical miles, it could be about 3 or 4 kilometers, is another island which has the airstrip on it, and not a very large airstrip, where civilian aircraft could land, bringing international tourists from all over the world. And so they had a large number of boats, which used to ferry between the airport island and between the main island for tourists to go where they've got to go. And there were many other islands where tourists could stay. And so this was the situation. Now we had to plan a military operation here to land troops. Obviously, if you're going to land troops by sea, it's going to take time. Ships take a little more time to travel this distance, 200 nautical miles. So the answer was to go by air, which I had already decided we should go. So the air chief said, well, what sort of force would you like to send? So I said, well, we learned that there are about 200 Sri Lankan terrorists, plus people inside the island itself, led by a few ministers who were causing a resurrection in the island against Abdul Gayoom, who was the president. President, as I told you last time, had run away. And there was a satellite communication from the Maldives tourism minister with our prime minister's office, because he had appealed for help. And luckily, the officers in charge of the Prime Minister's office had kept that channel open and told the chap, don't switch off. We are going to decide in the next few hours what is to be done. So you please be on the line all the time. So the channel was open. So anything we wanted to know, Mr. Ronan Sen from PM's office could give us the answer. So we wanted to know, firstly, where are the boats that take troops from, that could carry tourists or whoever, and if we land the troops from the airport there. So that the boats, the tourist people have arrived in the morning. So all the boats have picked up from the airport island and gone to the main island. So there are no boats in the airport island. So the first thing we told him, without even further planning, if the boats are at Mali, quietly go and tell all the boat people, without informing the terrorists who are on the island and have taken control of all the president's palace and the police headquarters, etc., kindly send the boats back to the airport, even if they're empty, and if there are no more tourists expected till tomorrow. See? So straight away, at about 9 or 10 o'clock, the information was sent out to the Maldives minister on the other end of the line to quietly go and very, very quietly remove all the boats from the main island and send them back to the airport. So that was done. The idea here is that if we land troops there, we need some means of reaching the main island to take on the terrorists. And also, if we don't have the boats, then we can't go to the main island in any case. So you can't affect the situation. All right. Then we decided that, yes, we'll do an aircraft landing. Now, the Navy chap, he said, look, this is very funny. The Air Force is going to do the carriage of the army to this main island. The boat's already there, going to take you on the island. What's the role of the Navy? So we said, bide your time. You never know how these things turn out, and maybe you'll get a task. So he was very upset that the accolades, if they did come of the, would be to the Air Force and the Army and not to the Navy. You know? So we told Gulu to relax, keep smiling. Let's see how it goes. Meanwhile, we made this plan. Basically, the plan was to take approximately a battalion of infantry, maybe a little less, about a battalion minus. That means about 2 companies or 3 companies under a battalion headquarters of the parachutes, with the tactical headquarters of the brigade commander himself, to carry them by air to the Maldives Islands and deposit them on this airfield island, then take the boats and cross to the main island and take on the terrorists. And we leave it to the commander on the spot to decide how he would like to do that. We can't make plans for the actual action on the ground, because that has to be done by the officer in charge of the troops. See? We can only get him, just to explain to you, at higher level of command, you have to place sufficient troops, as per your estimation, at the point of contact. After that, it's the job of the people who command the troops to do the action as per your hukum. So what is the aim? Go ahead and do it. We don't interfere in the way junior commanders function. So meanwhile, Roderick came into the room, and my vice chief with a very red face, and say that I rang up the para brigade, and the major, brigade major. Now, you see, there's a brigade headquarters who's commanded by a brigadier. His main staff officer is a major called the brigade major. He was there in Agra, and he answered the call of the vice chief. And the vice chief told him that, look, there's an operation coming your way. You are hereby ordered to be on 2 hours notice as per the orders of the army chief. So this major told him, yes, sorry, sir, but that's not the drill. We can't accept this order because we are on 3 days notice. So if you tell me now to get ready, it will take me 3 days to get ready. Why? Some people are on leave, big contingent of various battalions. Some people have gone on training. Some people have taken a sports team somewhere. So we are in peacetime location. We can't get the unit together. So therefore, it takes us 3 days to do that. And then you can put us on 2 hours notice, which is the correct date. So I thought, I felt there was a bit of a shouting match there, but the major didn't buck. He told the vice chief, sorry, sir, those are not the rules. You have to function by the rules. So Roderick came in a bit angry that this Major Saab had bucked the vice chief of the army staff. So I just laughed because I knew all these people. I said, Don't worry, I'll help. I called the Lieutenant General V K Singh, who was in charge of the military operations director, known as the Director General Military Operations. Very fine officer. He came. I said, look, this is the problem we are facing with the para brigade, but since we have to move straight away in a few hours, get hold of the brigade commander who's out on training. He wasn't in out. He had got a para drop practiced by one of his units some distance away, I mean, many miles away. And they were on an exercise. So he was watching the shells being dropped from the sky. He wasn't there. So I said, get hold of him. If he's not in communication on telephone, please tell the brigade major there to get him on radio set so that he's told to, as a request from the army chief, to kindly get together and get your troops together for a 2 hours notice, despite the rules being otherwise. Now, I must tell you about the brigade commander. He was a chap called Brigadier Balsara, a Parsi gentleman. And when I was commanding 17 Mountain Division in Sikkim, I had 9 infantry battalions. Out of these, the 2 best battalions was 4 parachute battalion, which is in Sikkim with me, and the 2nd, 4th Gurkha Rifles. They were my best battalions. All the division competitions was a tussle between these 2 battalions. And 4 parachute battalions was commanded by then Lieutenant Colonel Balsara, the same man. Now he's gone on promotion and he's taken over the parachute brigade. So I knew him personally, and he knew me personally. Hence, though the drill says otherwise, I sent out a request to him, since it's a national emergency for Maldives, and we would like to take action straight away against the terrorists. Otherwise, the terrorists may kill the president and all that there if we don't move fast. Hence, we have to stretch a point and get the parachute 1 battalion worth ready on 2 hours notice to fly. So Brigadier Balsara came on the line, spoke to the Director General Military Operations and said, yes, I'll do that. And he came running back, and then he informed us that, look, people are away on leave from all my sector. There were 2 battalions there. So they were on leave, and they're on, the hockey team is out, and there are a lot of other duties that people have gone on. And the sports duties, other duties, guard duties out of Agra. So we don't have a single battalion available. So I suggested to them, I said, doesn't matter, this is against all rules, but you can mix the battalion, select the commanding officer, whoever it is, one of the battalions. And then since he can only produce 1 or 2 companies, get the other 1 or 2 companies from the other battalion, which normally is never done in battle. But we had no option. We had to get that number of troops ready, about a battalion minus 1, that means 3 companies and battalion headquarters. So he did that, much with the objections of the local CEOs, because normally that's not authorized. Nonetheless, we got it. Now, meanwhile, the Prime Minister was coming at 11:30, so we all repaired to the military operations room. And our DGMO, Director Military Operations, V K Singh, was to brief the gathering. The gathering comprised the Prime Minister himself, his Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Deshmukh, 1 or 2 flunkies from the Foreign Ministry. And then he had his cabinet. That's the Minister of Defense, that is K.C. Pant. There was the Minister of Finance, Minister of Home, which I think was Shaban at that time. And that means the Foreign Ministry, the Finance Ministry, the Defense Ministry, and the Home Ministry were all represented by the respective ministers. Ministry of Defense also had the RRM, who was Mr. Singh Deo. Now, Mr. Singh Deo, who was the RRM, was a parachutist, but from the territorial army. He'd done some parachutes. He knew my elder brother very well. And because he knew my elder brother very, very well, he and I had become friends. So they were all in the operations room. And when we were ready for the briefing, I told the Prime Minister, can we start the meeting? But he started an argument, shall I call it, with the cabinet secretary who is sitting next to him, Mr. Deshmukh. In fact, the Prime Minister got a bit red in the face, telling him off. I was sitting right behind him, listening to this. And what I discerned from this little telling off of the cabinet secretary was that initially the cabinet secretary had suggested that we should do a secret operation. And this is the way the bureaucracy functions. That we're going into another country, and what we should do is to use the National Security Guard. Now, National Security Guard is really under the cabinet secretary, and it is under a police officer of a rank of Director General, IG Police or Director General Police. He's got two groups being trained there. One is a police group and one is an army group. They're about a battalion's worth of each at my time. Now they're larger. What they do is that in case an aircraft is hijacked or something like that, then the police group functions as police commandos as to how to handle that. They also provide VIP security for the senior officials of government, including the politicians. And the other side is the military group who are really able to attack. If you remember, when the attack took place on Bombay by Pakistani terrorists, it was the National Security Guard which was operating there in all the hotels and all that, and there was the army group there. So the army group is very highly trained as commandos and very well physically and mentally prepared for this sort of thing. And they are led in those days by a brigadier, but now they're led by a major general of the army. But he reports to a police director general, right? So I'm not very enthusiastic of this group myself, because I don't like a police mind to be in charge of a military, because culture is different. The military group requires a military commander to make them operate to the best of ability. The police commander has other ideas. He's looking at the politics of it. He's looking at how to please his seniors, how to please the prime minister or the chief minister of a state. So we don't bother about that in the military. And so anyway, that's how the government has arranged it. We can't argue about that. So apparently, they decide to send this khufia, that means secret group of NSG commandos to go to Maldives directly with an aircraft. But nevertheless, since their planning and organization is perhaps not that efficient in a battle zone, things went wrong. In other words, they were supposed to take off at about 8 or 9 in the morning from an aircraft provided by the RNAW. The RNAW has an aviation group called the Special Air Services. There was special, about a squadron of aircraft, fixed-wing aircraft, load-carrying aircraft, etc. So they're supposed to get an aircraft from there, which positioned very quickly at the Delhi airport. But the NHE group is some distance away beyond Gurgaon, what I mean. The coordination of them to get into buses, the buses had to come from somewhere to bring those people to the airport to get into the aircraft. The aircraft waited for a couple of hours, nobody came, so the aircraft flew away. With the result, by the time the NSE arrived there was no aircraft, so they had to find another aircraft. So all that took time. Meanwhile, since our conference started at 11:30, nobody knew what happened to that NSE group. So since the cabinet secretary was not giving a clear answer to the prime minister, so the prime minister got very upset with him and were telling him off. So I meanwhile butted in. I said, Prime Minister, if you don't mind, may I say a word? He said, yes, General, what do you wish to say? I said, you must not do in an international intervention. You must not do something secret. It must be open. The whole world must know. He said, what do you mean? I said, therefore, the military has to do. The moment you do the military, it is above board. There's nothing secret. Everybody knows that we are coming there. All the world will know. America will know. Maldives will know. Sri Lanka will know. And the terrorists will. Let that be known. Because once the military is given the task, they're not going to stop till they've completed. But it must be legal. Legal means that you have been requested by the Maldives government for help, he's also requested America, he's requested Pakistan, he's requested Malaysia, he's requested Sri Lanka, he's requested Australia, so many people, and they've all refused because they can't intervene. You see? And the Americans could not intervene because they've got military they had military in the Philippines, the base, they had military in the Gulf, they had some military in Diogo Garcia, which is in the southern part of the Indian Ocean, but it takes time to get those guys across the ocean to Maldives. And meanwhile, you don't want the president of Maldives to be slaughtered or something. So obviously, immediate intervention by air by India was the easiest one. So I said, let everybody know. So the Prime Minister said, supposing it doesn't work out. I said, once you give the task to the army, it's jolly well going to work out. What do you mean it won't work out? Unless you have confidence, how can you plan anything? I mean, you are here to do a planning, let's get on with it. All right, so he cooled off. And then we did the briefing. After the briefing, the Prime Minister asked me, when would you start the operation? I said, perhaps by this afternoon we'll be able to get off. Because the sooner we get there, the better. He said, fine. And when you land there in the Maldives and you start this battle, how many casualties do you expect? So I said, I don't know. How can I predict as to how many casualties will be there? If we have opposition while landing, then yes, the whole aircraft may be destroyed or something may go, then we could have 100 casualties. But if we manage to surprise the enemy and we are not contested in the landing, we could have no casualties. Say. So he said, but I don't accept hundreds of casualties. I said, how do you mean you don't accept? A job has to be done. Casualties take place, you've got to accept. So he asked me that would you, as the army chief, accept 100 of your chaps getting killed? I said, I don't accept any such thing. I'm not saying they're going to get killed. And just to ask me a question, I give you an answer. This is the possibility. If a whole aircraft comes down and there are 100 men on board, they'll die. He said, but you mean to killing 100 chaps is acceptable? Not acceptable to me politically. I said, in any case, whatever the political equation is your responsibility, not my responsibility. You give me a task, it will be done. And whatever the casualties, we will accept that. But we'll make sure they're minimum. We'll make sure that they're none properly. But that depends on the kismat that takes place and how the enemy reacts. All right. Anyway, after this little discussion, he cooled off and we gave him the briefing. So he said, now I expect to take off in the afternoon. I said, yes, we can take off. So then he went away and we got down to work. Because while politicians are present there, you can't do any work. After they've left the operation room, then we go for detailed planning as to how this is to be done. You see, how many aircraft are required? What is the load to be put in each aircraft? What is the equipment that has to be carried? How much ammunition has to be carried? All this has to be worked out. So all the staff was doing that work. And meanwhile, Nirmal Suri, very efficient, vice chief of the air staff and later air chief, he got the number of aircraft, so many Ilyushin 76, those huge Russian 4-engined aircraft and other Dakotas and things, and had them positioned on the airfield, saying, all right, General, whenever you're ready, my aircraft are ready on the aircraft. And now we had told the para brigade 2 hours notice. So we gave them the 2 hours notice to come on, get your battalion go. So Brigadier Balsara had got battalion worth of troops organized after mixing a few companies and platoons. He had selected one of the battalion commanders to be the boss and his own tactical headquarters to accompany them. And then the foreign ministry, I must say something to you here, Navigator. When there is a task to be done by the military, let us say, it is the coordination of civil bureaucracy and the military, very close coordination, plus the politics, that's the Prime Minister. This close coordination is what gives success. Everybody knows what the task is, and so everybody bungs in to say how they can help. For instance, the S.K. Singh rang me up, the foreign, he was present there. We didn't know half an hour of this meeting, he rang me. He said, we've got a diplomat who's a consul who is located in the Maldives, in the capital Maldives. And it happens by chance that he is here in Delhi today because he was called for some briefing and he's in Delhi. So what we suggested that when you send this aircraft, let him accompany the first lot of the aircraft, since he knows all the local politicians in Maldives and he knows the president and he knows the police boss and all that. So he'll be able to coordinate your activities there by getting the coordination and the cooperation of the Maldives people. So I said, fine. So he was pronto given an aircraft by the Air Force and he landed up in Agra also, cooling his heels till we decided to go. But meanwhile, we got information from the parachute brigade that the brigade commander wants to take 6 artillery guns with him. Now, these artillery guns that the parachute brigade had that time were a pack howitzer. It's a howitzer which can be packed on a mule. It can be broken up into 6 or 7 parts and carried by mules in the mountains and things like that. So since these people have to be dropped by air, and the loads that you have to drop by air are limited, so they have a platform. A platform is made of steel and aluminium and all that, on which this gun is mounted and lashed onto it. Then you have about 4 to 6 parachutes on this platform, and this is shoved out of the airplane so that it comes down and there's a gun free. So the vice chief came to me and he said, they are delaying because they have to mount these guns on the platforms. There are 6 guns, and to mount these guns on the platform, it takes 6 hours. You see? So, therefore, we don't see any reason. And the military operations also suggested that we see no reason as to why these guns should be carried at all. They won't be terrorists. There may not be any need for these guns. I said, no, he is the brigade commander. We have given him a task. If he is allowed to carry what he wants, then he is responsible to carry out that task. If you not start interfering in what he has to carry, then if something goes wrong, you can't blame him, he blame you. Let us say some problem arises there, and it turns out, because we don't have intelligence, that the enemy has got guns and the chap has got none, then he may be scuppered. See? So I said, whatever the brigade commander wants, that's to be done. Then I was informed that then you can't take off in the afternoon because he's taking 6 hours, 7 hours to load these guns, to put them on. I said, well, whatever it is, do that. But we rang up the brigade commander, instead of 6 guns, carry 4, so that we have less time in which to mount them and put the parachutes, etc., on the platforms and load them onto the aircraft. Of course, Air Marshal Suri at that time came to me and said, look, the Air Force is ready. You guys are not ready, so we can't take off till you come. When are you going to come? I said, that's an interesting question. We'll see when we come. Then lashing the guns, as soon as they lash the guns, we'll go. Came afternoon, at about 2 o'clock, I decided to go home and have my lunch. And I told my wife, my dear Swarupi, I said, there's something on for, I'll be awake all night. So give me a quick lunch and I'm to sleep for 2 hours. So I had my lunch and I went to bed. While I was sleeping, I got a call from the Ministry of Defense, with the Defense Minister on the line, Mr. K.C. Pant. He said, General, where are you? I said, I'm at home and I'm sleeping. You've disturbed me. So he says, how can you be sleeping when the Prime Minister is on my back to say you're supposed to take off in the afternoon and there's no signs of you going? Because we sent the Defense Secretary, a person called Seshan. Now, you know who Mr. Seshan is. Mr. Seshan became the first election commissioner who played hell with everybody, including the government.
He was the election
because he brought a lot of discipline into the business of electioneering. But he was the Defense Secretary at that time. We used to call him not Seshan, but Al Seshan, because he was so fond of the Gandhi family. Whatever they did was right and whatever anybody else said was wrong. So I used to tell him that you're not Seshan, you're Al Seshan. Aap Pradhan Mantri Rajiv Gandhi ka kutta hai. You're the dog of the Prime Minister. Alsatian, offensive dog. Because anything that we want to discuss, the Prime Minister wants to. He said, so what? We are not interested in the Prime Minister. We've got to do militarily what we have to do. So he was sitting in the operations room, telling the defense minister, these guys are sitting here, nothing's happening, and going after the DGM and all that. So one of the majors who are map marking people we have there rang me. He said, sir, this Mr. Session is playing hell here. He's hanging around giving orders all around. So I said, but he's not supposed to be in the military operations room. What is he doing there? So people said that yeah, what to do with him? So I told him, I said, you don't worry, the Director General Military Operations is very busy doing his plan. We have a couple of, we have 4 or 5 very stalwart soldiers as guards in the operations room. So you can't enter the operation because they're guards, they're armed and all that. So I said, get 2 of those guys. They were sardars, tall, strapping chaps with weapons. Get 2 of them. You should march into the operations room under your guidance. Go to Mr. Session and said, Mr. Defense Secretary, sir, you have to escort you back to your office. And if he objects, you pick him up. He's a short, stumpy man. Pick him up and take him back to his office, out of my office. He is not allowed to come. So he was rather upset, but he was coached to go back to his office. He said, we want no bureaucrat sitting in the operations telling us what to do. Anyway, off he went. Meanwhile, we carried on with that plan. So Defense Minister said that you are in home and here the Prime Minister is on my back saying that, when are you taking off? So I said, Minister, I don't know when we're going to take off. Brigade commander wanted to lash guns and take off. When he's ready, we'll go. He said, but then what do I tell the Prime Minister? I will tell him what I've told you. He's given me a task. I said, we'll take off in the afternoon. I may be wrong. As luck would have it, things have transpired that they can't take off in the afternoon until the brigade commander is satisfied the loads he's got in the aircraft. So therefore we wait at the pleasure of the brigade commander of the parachute brigade. When he tells me he's ready, then we'll go. So the Defense Minister said, but I don't think the Prime Minister is going to like that. I said, that's between you and the Prime Minister, and whether he likes it or not, it is business, not my business. But please inform him, he's given me a task willy-nilly, afternoon or night or whatever it is, it's a big task. Let him relax. So he told the PM that I had no more interference from the Ministry of Defense. And at about 5 o'clock in the evening, I got back to the office, ready for the night. And we saw that everything was going according to the plan of the brigade commander of the parachute brigade. And eventually, the Air Force also said that we cannot fly directly from Delhi to the Maldives. So we have to stage the aircraft at Trivandrum, which is southern part of India, where they will be refueled. People can go to the toilet and things like that, have a hot meal, then we go. I said, yes, very wise. That is to be done. That delayed the thing further. See? But meanwhile, I must give it to the Air Force and their efficiency. Because the Air Chief was not there, all done by Nirmal Suri, the Vice Chief of the Air Staff. He sent a separate set of aircraft to Trivandrum to prepare Trivandrum aircraft for this massive number of aircraft and human beings that are going to land there, almost about, let us say, about 300 or 400 soldiers and officers and so on. They land there. And the Trivandrum airfield at that time was only a civilian small airfield. There was nothing much in it. So the Air Force had to bring fuel, it had to bring maintenance staff, it had to bring cookhouses to feed people, take over the whole airfield, take over the air control, told the civilians to relax, we've done everything, stop the civilian flights. There's a lot of